So Bernie Sanders promised to release his tax returns recently, and he kept that promise. He released them over the weekend. And Time Magazine explains here, making good on a promise, Bernie Sanders released tax returns that showed he and his wife Jane made a little over $200,000 in 2014. They paid about $27,653 in taxes, about 13.4% of his total income, according to the tax returns. The couple made a little over $8,000 in charitable donations. Most of Sanders' income came from his $174,000 Senate salary. Jane made $4,900 working as a commissioner for the Texas Low-Level Radioactive Waste Disposal Compact Commission. Okay, so when you look at the amount of money that he made here, a little over $200,000, that actually makes him one of the poorest members of Congress. Now, his net worth, so everything put together, is also about $460,000, which makes him, I think it was the 86th or the 84th most rich member of the Senate, I believe. So that means he's one of the poorest, obviously, 100 members of the Senate. So that shows you he's not doing all extracurricular stuff. This isn't a guy who's been kind to lobbyists so that when he retires, he goes and he makes money from lobbyists. But there is a little bit of controversy over the percentage in taxes that he paid. Hillary supporters and Republicans are saying, gotcha! Okay, got ya. How? I'm not quite sure I understand. Well, they say he paid less in taxes than he wants to pay. I got you. Well, number one, he ain't president yet, so he didn't set these tax rates. He didn't get his policies implemented. And number two, that's actually not really true. So Mitt Romney, people got on Mitt Romney, including myself, because Mitt Romney paid about 14% in taxes on $42 million made in a single year. $42 million? That's unbelievable. Bernie paid about 14% on about $200,000 made, which is way less. $200,000 versus $42 million. Now, I've often said on the show, and, you know, we can go back and we can pull up all the old clips if need be, that I, as a progressive, as a liberal, I've never met a tax cut for people making $250,000 or less that I didn't love. So this idea that, oh my God, there's some sort of hypocrisy on the left, not as far as I see it. I've been consistent on this. And even Bernie has been consistent on this. He's been tarred and people have made up that he wants to tax people at 90%. That's totally and utterly made up. And they pretend like he's talking about people to make over, $100,000 or whatever. Again, that's totally made up. Now, on top of that, people are forgetting to factor in two very important things. Number one, the way that marginal tax rates work. People, when they look at Bernie's proposed tax plan, the real one, not the one that they made up in their head where they came up with this bullshit 90% number, but the one that shows his top marginal rate being 52% for people who make over $10 million. That doesn't mean that the government comes in and takes 52% of your money if you make, say, $10 million. No, it means that every dollar that's made above $10 million is taxed at 52%. Now, everything in the lower bracket is taxed at the lower bracket's rate. Everything under that bracket is taxed at that bracket's rate. So if you're mad at Bernie for paying the amount in taxes that he's legally supposed to pay, you're not mad at him, you're mad at the way the system is working right now, and you don't understand how marginal taxes work. And furthermore, you also don't understand the difference between total income and taxable income. And you don't understand reasonable deductions that everybody's in favor of, Democrats and Republicans alike, like the charitable deduction, for example. They gave away about 4% of their money in charity. All right, so a Facebook user named Tyler Overstreet, and he tweeted this at me. I want to thank him for that because it really breaks it down in a very clear, concise, specific way here. He actually gave all the details on this, so you see exactly how they came to this number, the government came to this number, and exactly why Bernie had to pay the amount of money in taxes that he had to pay, and it's pretty easy to understand. So he says, When you file your taxes, there's something called marginalized tax brackets, meaning you wouldn't get charged, in this case, 25% federal income taxes, because that's the bracket that Bernie's in, on the whole lump sum. In 2014, Jane and Bernie Sanders filed $205,271 in total income after deductions including $8,350 in charitable donations and Social Security $39,281 taxable. Bernie and Jane had a taxable income, very important here, of $140,994. This is where the marginalized tax brackets come in. The way our taxes work is in 2014, you get taxed from 10% in the bracket of $0 to $18,500, 15% in the bracket of $18,151 to $73,800, and 25% from $73,801 to $148,850, and so on. Since they made $140,994 in taxable income, they were taxed $1,815 in the 10% bracket, $8,347 in the 15% bracket, and $16,798 in the 25% bracket. Total taxes paid, $26,961 plus $692 in self-employment taxes equals $27,653. So in other words, they paid the exact correct rate when you actually know what the fuck you're doing when you're looking at taxes. And when you're looking at the marginal rates, I should say, when you're looking at the proper deductions, when you're looking at taxable income. And look, as I said yesterday, when people were, for whatever reason, angry about this on Twitter, if you're mad about it, you just don't get how the marginal rates work. And if you ask somebody like me, am I mad that somebody who makes $200,000 a year paid 14% in federal taxes? No, I think that's about right. Like I said, I never met a tax cut for people making $250,000 or less that I didn't like. That means that poor people, middle-class people, and even some upper-middle-class people, like somebody who makes $200,000 a year, they're able to keep a large amount of their money. And on top of that, they still should be able to get the social services that make sense, like healthcare, like education, so on and so forth. So, Bernie's in the same boat as I am on this, where he wants higher rates for the rich, specifically the very rich, and he wants more progressive brackets. So in other words, tax cuts for poor people, middle-class people, you keep the taxes about the same for the upper middle-class people, and for the rich, we're talking over $5 million a year, over $10 million a year, those people need to pay more in taxes. So again, all the outrage on this is totally misplaced, and people are pretending like there's some sort of hypocrisy. I don't see any hypocrisy at all, because even under Bernie's proposed tax rate, the nominal rate for this bracket goes from 25% to 28%. Or actually, it went from 25 to 28 already, I think, under Obama, and under Bernie's plan, he just keeps it the same. So for the bracket that he's in, he keeps, the same percentage. So 28%, then in his case, you minus the charitable deductions, you minus the Social Security, you look at the taxable income, and, you figure it out that way. So we'd be paying about the same under his administration. There's no hypocrisy here whatsoever. And if you don't understand that, you just need to learn more about how our taxes work. Now, hopefully I broke it down for you in a very clear way. But what's stunning to me is that apparently there's still people who believe this caricature of progressives, this out-and-out smear of liberals and progressives, that we're blindly in favor of raising taxes on anybody and everybody, and that's something that makes sense. No, look, do I get it that middle-class people and poor people and even upper-middle-class people, that these are people who should keep a lot of the money that they earn because they don't make nearly as much as the super rich? Yeah, of course I do. Of course I get that. But in their minds, in the caricature and the straw man that the right and some Hillary supporters have made up about, liberals and progressives and people on the so-called far left, they think that we want to come in and raise taxes for people who make $50,000 a year, $80,000 a year. We want their taxes to be 50%. Why on earth would I want their taxes to be 50%? Those are the people who I'm always really in favor of, who I want to support. I want to be on their side. I want to look out for the middle class. I want to look out for poor people. I want to look out for people in the country who have been left behind by this rigged economic system and this corporatist system with all the money and politics destroying their chances. to pretend like I want to take all those people's money. I don't want to do that. I want to tax them either less or about what they're being taxed now, and then give them shit that makes sense for that money. All we got to do is reallocate our funds. Instead of paying for war, instead of paying for corporate welfare, instead of paying for subsidies to the big banks, instead of paying for pork barrel spending, take all the money that we take in taxes and put it towards healthcare, put it towards education, things that make sense. So it's funny to me that this is like a scandal. Meanwhile, Bernie was asked, hey, are you going to release your tax returns? He's like, yeah, no problem. Hillary Clinton, hey, will you release the transcripts? I think Bernie should release the tax returns. The fuck? Who's like acting like he's hiding something? Again, he's one of the poorest members of the Senate, and you're like, oh, I got you. Got him how? Look at the way you do the math. Obviously, he paid the right amount in taxes. What the fuck are you talking about? You're the one that's got something to hide. Furthermore, Hillary's over $100 million in the Clinton family in speeches to corporations and special interests. And you're going to rant about this guy making $200,000 a year. That's unbelievable. And then furthermore, in their careers, the Clintons have raised over $3 billion from special interests for all the different things. The Clinton Foundation, their respective campaigns, the super PACs, into their pockets in the form of giving those speeches. I'll tell you, man, the media and Republicans and the Hillary supporters sure know how to spin a narrative and tar the person who's the most correct on the issues and who has the least to hide.